Hello, my name is Reno 26 years of age, and this is our first recording of Renowned Radio. I have with me my friend and co-host, Sam.
Sam Dunehafer.
That's how you say it? It's Dudehafer?
It's Sam Dunehafer. Happy to be here, Reno.
Okay, we've been saying it wrong this whole time.
I say Dunehafer. Some people say
I thought it was Dudenhofer.
Some people say Dudenhofer.
Okay, so I've
heard it 3 different ways, but I say Dunehafer. But you can say whatever you want.
That's like my name is Reno Navales. A lot of people try to add some flavor, some spice. They say Reno Navales, and it's like, no, like I was not, my family wasn't, we didn't pick this name. We were just kind of gifted this name. The Spaniards kind of took over the Philippines and kind of just gave us the last name, so I really don't like to add too much spice to it.
Since it sounds good how it is.
I appreciate that, Sam. So, Sam, I kind of want to start off with kind of giving the audience a little look into our lives, as they have no clue who we are, right? So I wanted to tell them, like, what was our first impression of one another, our jobs, in the city, because this is like what we have in common.
Awesome.
So I was going to start with you, Sam. I remember meeting you for the first time in an interview where I was pitted against you and another coworker that we have now, and I felt like I was being thrown to the lions. I have these 2 hotshot kids fresh out of college. You were the one that ran the entrepreneur, some type of business club, right? You're from Missouri, so like they're bringing in an outsider, right? They'll fly him in, they'll give him the special treatment, right? I don't know how they sourced him. And then I was pitted against Wyatt. He just looked the cut, right? He had the walk and the talk for it. And I remember you two guys are just like trying to one up each other, and I was like, okay, it's gonna be a tough game trying to one up one another, especially being the third one. So I was like, they'll just answer each other, and then I'll just try to go a different way. That was the way I took the interview, because I was like, I'll just try to answer the most unique way I could think of. Don't want to say the right thing. I want to say the wrong thing. That's the way I thought of it. So that was my first impression of you. And then I remember you're just a real go-getter. Like the first 2 months, just constantly like, how can I be better? Just asking everyone too many questions, which I thought was great, because I'm known for asking too many questions. But I really got to know you on that drive home when your car was broken down, and we just got to just sit in a car, kind of just talk about life outside of work. I think that was probably like the first time I was kind of like, oh, I can be this guy's friend, more so than just like, oh, I know him from work. What was your first impression of me, Sam?
That's so nice, man. I forgot about that car ride, but I mean, I remember it now. That was really pleasant. But to your question, so my first impression of you, I'm not going to lie, my very first impression of you was this kid's room is sending me. Because I remember there was so much posters. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe that's just the memory I have. But wherever you were taking the interview, that was my very first impression. So
that's my room right there.
And that's a shame on me for, making assumptions. But I was very impressed at the end of the interview, because I did think I was me and Wyatt were going at it. But after hearing about your story and you were talking about what you've done with this type of stuff, like podcasting and media and stuff, I was like, damn, that's a pretty cool talent. Or like a skill set. Because I've always, like I said, I've always wanted to be into that. But, I mean, you're mastering a craft, and I was like, I didn't know what to think at the end of the interview. I was pretty intimidated going into it because I had never been in like a group interview before. But it worked out. All 3 of us made it. So
we did, yeah.
I'm glad we made the cut.
The funny thing, Sam, is I know Noah from doing this, right? And I asked him about the job, and he was our interviewer, of course, right? And before that happened, he hit me up. He said, Reno, let's go get drinks. Let's talk about the interview. So before I had the interview, him and Noah and I and his roommate and our good friend Sam all sat down and had drinks right outside Zilker Park. And then we just had a couple of drinks, talked about the interview. He kind of told me like how it's going to be, hitting against one another. He's like, Reno, just be yourself. I was like, what's the question? It's like, I can't tell you those, but just be yourself, you'll be fine. And then we went to Zilker and just tossed the football around. So that was like a little prelude into that.
Trying to think of the first time I met Noah. It was through Aaron Cagle. I guess he reached out. I applied for an internship, and I'm not sure if it was Aaron or if it was Noah, but someone got back to me and said, like, this is not what you should be applying for. You should be applying for, like, this role. Because like, this is for someone who's still in school and you just graduated. And then that was the first time I met Noah after I applied through that.
Okay, nice.
But that's a way cooler story of what you just said.
So I was curious to know what you thought of your first time on the job. For me, I just remember it was me and Wyatt, and Connor was part of our class, but he was getting married, so he was remote. I met him once remote. He was just in a hat in a lobby in a hotel room, and he was like, "Yeah, well, the reception is in an hour, so I'm just getting ready. Hey guys, I'm Connor." So just me and Wyatt locked in a room with Noah, and he's just quizzing us on like different business terms, like what's a runway. I was like, I don't know, and like where models walk. He's like, no, like that's how much money you have until your business folds. He's like, see, you're not a business student. And I was like, okay, and then I just remember like watching like Grayson just yeah people to the next interview, or like Austin try to like just be like really tough with people. I was just trying to figure out like how do I talk to these people, right? Like I don't know any of these business terms. And then my first call was with this music guy, and he's walking me through his pitch deck, and I felt so nervous talking to this guy. He has no money, right? Like now I would just think like, oh, it's unqualified. And this guy was trying to tell me about the blue ocean, and I thought he was talking about the blue ocean because his company is called Noise Sharks, but the blue ocean's a business book and a business philosophy, and I have no clue or no idea what that is. And so I was talking to this guy. I was like, "Oh, dude, that's so cool. Sharks, music, right? Swimming, blue ocean." And after the interview, Noah was like, "No, like blue ocean's a famous philosophy in business." And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Damn, this job would be hard. It's so hard for me." But I found my way.
So what's the philosophy?
I don't know. I never looked it up. Just like venture deals, I never read that book.
That's all right.
I think that's the best part about the reason why I think this podcast and this friendship will go so well is you're very structured, very well read, and I'm the opposite. Could care less about structures, could care less about studying up on things. There's a famous fashion designer named Ass Pizza. He talks a lot about inspiration in life and how the more like you take in from the world, the more you try to be inspired, the less original you'll be, because you'll just try to like be like other people. So I remember reading that and hearing that and thinking, I don't want to be like others. So I try my hardest not to. I guess I'm ignorant to a fault. Like if I read about the blue ocean, I'll think I'll have to recreate it. That's why I try my hardest not to learn too many things. I like to break all the rules because I don't know them. That's the way at least I think of it.
It's not a bad mindset to live by. But I'm going to go look it up after we're done with this podcast. I was going to, and then I was like, I'll just do it later.
You should. So what was your first impression of the job?
My first impression of the job was similar to yours. I was like, holy shit, I don't know what I'm doing. A little bit of imposter syndrome, not going to lie. I didn't feel like I didn't deserve it, but I did feel underprepared. But that's why I did read Venture Deals and some of the other books, because I felt intimidated on calls. Mainly because some of the founders we were speaking with are so experienced in their fields, and I'm fresh out of college.
Agreed, yeah.
3 months out of graduation. And I hadn't even heard of what a startup was prior to like the year before. So like, yeah. But anyways, I mean, it went good. It was just like a learning curve for me. But I really liked it. I really liked talking to founders. And I've identified as an entrepreneur since I first started reading, like freshman year of college or so. And I was like, I don't know how to get there, but this was the most attractive part of the job for me. And I immediately like was grateful when I started working there. So, I mean, I'm still here.
Yeah. What do you think of Venture Deals? Like, what would you say are some pillars like that you took away from that?
Not as much as pillars as it's kind of like a college textbook, to be honest. It's very thick to read if you're new to the space, but it does a really good job explaining everything that you need to know in the position. It just being around VC speak, talking like a venture capitalist and understanding terms you wouldn't know unless you studied the topic. So
Interesting.
Not to say it wasn't a super interesting, or it wasn't a super engaging book for someone who didn't know what they were doing, but I learned a lot.
What's an interesting book or an engaging book you've read? Probably like, I guess this year, so like the past 3 months, because you're always reading books. Like you're the one who's posting quotes on your Instagram.
I haven't done that as much lately. I need to get back on my grind. Best book I've read this year is probably, it's called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I think it's Chris Voss I believe his last name. He's a ex-FBI negotiator.
You tell me about this book.
It was probably been the single most impactful book I've ever read in terms of how it actually impacts my day-to-day. So he tells a story about I'm not sure how deep into his career he was relatively new as a hostage negotiator, and he got called to a bank, typical like bank hostage. I think I want to say in the 90s. And long story short is he was not the guy in charge. I don't think. I could be wrong on that, but it ended about as bad as it could have ended. The hostage killed everyone he had held hostage, which it wasn't a lot. It was probably like single digits. I don't remember how much, but either way, it was like the exact opposite of what you should do. And it was how he set the stage for the book on how the tips that he had come to learn later would keep something like that from happening. And that's kind of an extreme example, but being that I'm in a sales position and I talk to people all day, you really learn a lot about human psychology when you hear how a hostage negotiator kept
It's interesting.
some kind of person who was holding other people for ransom or had some kind of crazy desires, how to keep them on without going over the edge. So a lot of applications to sales, to just talking to people. A very interesting book.
Yeah, that is interesting. That reminds me, like, the most impactful book I've read was not a book I read, I actually listened to. It was an audiobook. It was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I'm a big David Goggins.
Oh, you listened to the audiobook?
I like the
audiobook. I
audiobook.
remember you telling me that.
Mostly because the book is kind of, it's very straightforward. It's a book. The audiobook, the reason I gravitated towards that is because David Goggins and the author of the book, they talk in between each chapter and kind of digest why he talked about this chapter, why he talked about that. He gives further insight into the chapter as a whole.
What was the biggest takeaway for you?
The biggest one by far is called the emotional cookie jar. So, do you know what that is?
I know what it is. I know what you're talking about, but I think you should definitely explain what that is because I don't remember it as well as I should.
So the emotional cookie jar is essentially like you do something good in life, you can go to the kitchen, get a cookie, right? Feel better about your life, right? The emotional cookie jar is like we all go through struggles or challenges in life, hurdles, but we've all done that before. So like getting a job is very difficult. I applied to 350 jobs before I got this one. I had 5
No way.
Yeah. Actually, it was probably more, but like that's a good, nice number.
Those some rookie numbers. Bring those down.
Right. I had 5 interviews and I got 1 job offer. I was like, it's such a challenge, a grind. A lot of people I know, they can't do that, right? They can't apply to jobs. But I mean, I messaged 300 people to get on my final show. So just taking my wins, my challenges that I've done before and putting them in like a cookie jar. So when I have a challenge, I can pull like, oh, I've done this before. Graduated college, right? I've had my own radio show before. I've done all these great, amazing things. Why can't I just keep doing that? So that's what the emotional cookie jar is in essence. And like my first month at Newchip, this guy had an entire company called the Cookie Jar. And I was like, bro, I gotta ask, is this a David Goggins thing? He goes, yeah, it is.
No way.
And me and him talked about Goggins for like most of the call. And the reason the company just didn't do well is it's just a tough thing trying to create that idea with pictures and movies and shows and poetry and all that and make it profitable amongst entire people because it's kind of a difficult thing.
How is he doing these days? Have you checked up on that founder?
I haven't. I have not.
I would love to see how that's going.
He won a competition 4 years ago to get it off the ground, and then last time I was talking to him, he was just trying to develop the back end, and you need a lot of money to develop the back end, like as most of them do. So it's kind of tough. I should probably check up on Hans. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, let's check up on Hans. But that's wild. So I also have one item to share for you from the biggest thing I got from that book.
Right.
From Can't Hurt Me, as you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. I am very structured, and there was a point where everything's on a dichotomy, right? It's like you can be too far extreme on either side, and when I first started building routines and habits, I was way too far to the perfectionist side of things, to the point.
Really?
Yeah, to the point where it was causing unnecessary anxiety that I couldn't keep up with the standards I'd set for myself. And that sounds very like nuanced, but I was definitely struggling from that. And what Goggins talks about, the biggest thing I can remember from his book, and I don't know exactly how he termed it, but the basic idea is that in the military, or in the SEALs, I should say, whenever they're planning operations, they always plan for failure. So instead of planning something at an exact time block, by 12 o'clock I'm going to be at point A, by 3 o'clock I'm going to be by point B, you're intentionally planning for things to go wrong. So if you end up going the wrong way, you have a chance to get back. So that has really been like the biggest takeaway for me, which is so weird because that book has so much deeper meanings about like his story.
It does.
Amazing book, but that's like now I'm still very structured, but I'm a lot more lenient on myself, and it's life is so much better from it, and it's crazy that without reading that book, I don't know what the hell would have happened, but I don't know. It was refreshing.
I'm curious to know, when did you start to build these structures? Have you always have somewhat been structured or rigid in your mindset of life?
No, I have absolutely not. I started sophomore year of college, I would say. It was somewhere in that time. I was the exact opposite though for a long time.
You were a free spirit.
I was a free spirit, man.
I wonder what hippie Sam was like.
Hippie Sam, dude. I don't know. I could just
Shoes
be a whole
off,
nother
rolling around the grass.
This could be a whole nother podcast episode. Hippie Sam was going down the wrong path and got smacked in the face by some bad decisions a couple times. So I started to get organized once I realized that there was still time for me to fix all the potential bads I had. And I think I got surrounded by some really cool people in college. Started to get out of my old friend group. Nothing against my old friend group, but
of course,
you got to change your mindset. And it was actually that entrepreneur club you told me about. That actually probably is what did it for me.
Really?
Because I was surrounded by people who were like, I was just like, I can't even have a conversation with these kids because they're so smart. So that was it. Sophomore year of college, I would say, is when it started.
As they say, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
That is what they say. And
So
it's true.
That's one thing I've been trying to do. So since my job's become remote, I've come into the office less, and I've noticed that since I'm kind of ISO'd, I needed to kind of get out of that. So I've been trying to make more of a conscious change to go walk to the university and sit in the library or just around the students and do my homework there, because I'm just surrounded by students, the grind. That's one thing I've been thinking about a lot the past week, is like how much I used to do as a student, and then once I graduated, or like once I started Zoom University, like just how much all that went away. I used to wake up at 5:30 in the morning, go to work at In-N-Out Burger, clean the whole restaurant, get off work at 11, come home, shower, then go to class until 5, and then do something.
That's wild. That's a long day.
I know. I used to be on 3 hours of sleep in French class, like, Reno, don't fall asleep. J'aime pamplemousse. Oh, fuck. I don't think that's how I say it. All right, like, I'll never forget just, like, being hardwired, like, being crazy in class. Just thinking, like...
I had a crazy caffeine addiction in college for that exact reason. I'd be staying up hella late, working. I worked in a supplement store doing not as bad of shifts as what you were doing, but yeah, same routine, man. I had to keep myself from falling asleep through class.
Right, so that's one thing I've been thinking about. I don't want to necessarily go back to that, but it'd be nice to find some balance in that, as I've gone the opposite direction, which is just like I barely show up to work, right? Put in my hours and then nap the rest of the day and maybe watch a movie. Like, that's not good. Like, I have to do like what Jimmy Valvano says. I have to laugh, I have to cry, and I have to be in deep thought. I can't just, wander through life. So I wanted to be more of a student, kind of do a lot more things, and I told myself this year, age 26, every single day I have to do something new or something challenging. So far I've completed all that except for the thunderstorm day. Kind of a weird day. So yesterday I went golfing for the first time ever. That was so much fun.
You went golfing for the first time ever yesterday?
Yeah, I went with Luke and I went with Davis. I've never golfed before, and it was such a challenge because...
How'd you do?
I sucked. We didn't even keep track.
I suck too, man. I've only been like 10 times, so I can't hate.
You should go. Davis has 3 buckets a day to go hit.
Nice.
On the driving range.
Solid.
But like, it reminded me a lot of track. I miss being part of being an athlete. I haven't been an athlete in a long time. All the little things and nuances you have to remember just to do something right. Like, you have to do 20 things right just to have a decent 100-meter race. So just getting back into that.
There's so much technique involved in golf. I'm not even qualified to talk on that. But I'm glad you had a good time.
Sam, what are you trying to get back into, or what are you trying to maybe bring back to your life?
I would love to get back into jiu-jitsu, but I don't have enough bandwidth, or that's an excuse I tell myself, to do that and to lift, and that's what I'm doing right now. Ideally, I will lift for a couple more months, get some muscle built up, and then start doing jiu-jitsu again. But I trained for a half marathon. I guess it was like 4 weeks ago, and that was about 6 weeks of training where I stopped lifting completely. So the answer to your question is there's so many things I want to get back into. I've got to pick one, I guess.
Well, you can cycle, right? So like, maybe a jiu-jitsu competition comes up, and then you sprint for that, do that competition, and pick up lifting again or whatever. You could do something like that, right?
That's true. What about you, other than golf?
golfing, I guess I'm just trying to get back into the good old days, right? Back when TV was black and white, when mom and dad were together, just the good old days.
That's all right. That's a good thing to strive for.
I'm just teasing. Just like back when like I'd wake up and go for a run. I'd go to the track and do like sprints, that kind of thing. Go back into like making music again, just be more creative, just doing more things in general.
Do you think that type of exercise and routine around being active helped you with being creative?
It did. It did. That's
Why?
one. Just something about emptiness, and just like, yeah, I would say emptiness. When something's empty, you gotta feel it. So, going for a long run or a walk, you don't got anything but that one thing to do. You have a lot of time in your head just to think of other things. So like, every Wednesday, except for this Wednesday, I usually go for like an hour and a half, 2 hour walk, run, and I just call a bunch of people I haven't called in a long time, and then kind of think of like future plans to do. And then I get home and write them all down and then try to execute them. That's how this one came about.
Man, that's so cool because I've heard people. I don't have anyone to cite when I say I've heard that that is a common thing to do to spend that as like thinking time, whether it's a walk or a run or a bike ride, and then you have something to execute on. And hats off to you. I don't have any like kind of routine like that.
I mean, I'm sure you have something that you do, something that fills that void or something that's akin to that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely keep myself busy, but I just think it's cool how you'll spend the entire walk thinking about doing something, and then you're like executing on it and doing it consistently.
It's a lot of fun, but also like it's a challenge. My mom never really pushed me in life. Not like she didn't push me, but like if I didn't complete a goal by a certain time, I didn't get in trouble. It's just like, you gotta do it the right way. You don't wanna rush things or anything. So try my hardest to like set expectations, but not kill myself with them. So like everyone keeps asking me about the next show or the next magazine, and part of me is like, oh, I could just pump one out in a month, but then like that doesn't feel right.
How long did it take you to do the last one? The debut.
It took me like 4 months of work,
Wow.
but I've been wanting to make a magazine for 4 years. So
What do you need to make it faster, or is it no need to be quicker?
it's not necessarily like it's more of concept. That's the biggest thing. Like if it doesn't have a good concept or a good idea behind it or just people behind it, it's not worth it. So like the next one I've thought about. So there's two I've always wanted to do. A breakfast one. Always want to do one around breakfast. I love breakfast food. And then golfing dads. So the psychology behind golf, dads, and then fashion.
And then golfing dads with fashion.
Yeah. So it's such a tough thing because all the people I want to shoot, all the places I wanted to shoot, are scattered around the United States. So that one's being kind of shelved right now. The next one's just going to be an ode to Austin. Better Homes and Gardens, Austin edition.
I would be a subscriber to that.
And it was just going to be like I'd go to your home and shoot you in your house or wherever you want to be, wherever you're in your most natural habitat. And then I would just do like a portfolio of you. That's the next magazine idea. A meeting with my head of marketing and my head of creative decisions tomorrow, actually. We're going to a place to get a beer and a burger and talk about it. See if it's a good idea.
Keep me in the loop.
I will.
I want to see how it turns out, and I want to push the magazine.
Thanks. What's going on with you? What are some big goals for Sam? For the Dudenhofer, for the Dudenhafer.
The Dudenhafer, the dude.
I know you have Hannah cakes on the horizon, right?
It's actually hand cakes.
Hand cakes?
Yeah, it's hand cakes. Hannah cakes you can call it Hannah cakes, but
I think of hand cakes.
we got the LLC filed and everything.
Really?
So we're actually.
Is it here or in
yeah,
Delaware?
it's a Texas LLC.
Okay.
So it's actually official in the eyes of the government now. But that's what I've been spending my time on weekends, and then during the week, got this new position I started 3 months ago on the analyst team, right? So
It's been 3 months?
or excuse me, 3 weeks ago. Yeah,
I was like, damn, your time is flying, bro, if it's been 3 months.
Yeah, and to be honest, man, I feel really lame. It's just like my life is work, but it's okay because I'm enjoying it, right? And I feel like it's impactful, and I really like what I do. That's what keeps me busy. So I just try to keep good habits in between, but I feel like I don't necessarily have the time to have any projects going on, but because I don't. But like, I would love to do this if we made this my new project for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking we can do this bi-weekly. So it's very tough to shoot these things and then edit them. I mean, I used to do this every week.
How long does it take to edit, say, a 30-minute podcast average?
So that's a great question. So Sam wanted to learn a life skill. So Sam, I'll teach you a life skill right now. So right now we're recording on Audacity. This is a free app. You can use this whenever you want. This is very free, and all this equipment is very relatively cheap, right? So like this microphone, it goes for like $200, but you can get a decent one for $50. I just got this because I traded a bunch of shit to get it. Is
that like a super nice one?
It's a super nice one. Honestly, the reason it's nice is because it's very sensitive, so it picks up a bunch of stuff. But you don't need to know all that. The difference between this and a $50 microphone is this. It's minimal. Like, you'd have to be a super audiophile to even notice a difference. The regular person wouldn't notice. And then these are like $100.
What's that called?
This is called an audio interface.
Okay.
This powers this and allows these to read each other, so it can go into this. You can get a microphone that goes into the USB, but without that, it doesn't sound as nice, because this is able to read a lot more.
How does that connect to your computer?
Through USB.
Okay, I see it.
But this is like, imagine like this is 20 languages, and it turns it into 10 languages, which goes into 5. But if you just have a USB one, you just have 5 languages. So you don't have as much information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So everything is doubled. So a half-hour podcast takes about like probably 1.5. So a half-hour podcast takes an hour and a half to edit. Like, if you do it the right way. I've done it enough where I can probably do it in less time, but that's about the average it usually takes. So about
3x.
3x. With 3x?
1.5x. If it's a 30-minute podcast.
Yeah, and it takes an hour and a half.
It takes an hour and a half. Half of an hour is 30 minutes. So
okay.
It takes 3. I'm just being so. I'm sorry, dude.
Is that what it is?
I think so.
Hey, I failed stats 3 times, so I'm not ashamed to say I'm bad at math.
I'm anal about this type of stuff, so you have to get used to me
interjecting
on stuff that doesn't matter.
But anyway, so that's what it will take. So like, if we do an hour, it's probably going to take me 2.5 hours to edit, if anything. So
I edited a couple vlogs once. Is it anything like video editing, or is it nothing like?
It is. It's a lot like video editing. So if you know how to video edit, you know how to audio edit. It's actually a lot easier, because like, you can just, at least with this, like, and then you have a marker and you can cut it out. So that's a lot easier. Visuals are a little harder to try to put together, but I used to do video editing too. I had to do a documentary on cashmere once, and me and my friend did not want to do it for this class. So we just shot people in the bathroom talking about cashmere. That was what we did. My teacher hated it.
Sounds like a pretty cool project.
Yeah, it was fun.
Coolest kids in the school with that type of project.
Yeah.
Question for you, Reno, and we can turn this into a conversation, but what do you say to someone who has anxiety? Because maybe you have anxiety and you don't show it, because I'm sure everyone does, but you seem generally like really at ease around people and very conversational, and it's easy, and not a lot of people can live their life like that, and I feel like a lot of people live under a cloud, and I have definitely experienced it, but I know I've been lucky enough to not have a big problem with it overall. So how do you deal with anxiety? What would you say to someone who deals with a lot of anxiety?
How do I deal with anxiety, or how do I deal with talking to people? Or do you see those as the same or different?
I see those as different, unless you see them as... I'm asking, how do you deal with anxiety? How would you tell people to deal with anxiety if...
Anxiety is difficult to deal with. I would say I don't handle anxiety well. But a couple of things I learned is when I worked at In-N-Out Burger, I had to deal with anxiety or pressure often, as it's just the fast-paced nature of food, right? You have to get things out at a certain time. You have all these customers arguing, yelling at you. You have to make them happy. So there's a lot of pressure and anxiety that goes into that job.
Man, I have to interrupt you. Food business is the answer to how to deal with anxiety. I used to do that stuff. That's hardcore.
And I had a lot of bosses that would say, fire up or get fired, or ship up or ship out. So that's how a lot of them are. So I didn't handle it well. I'm not good at multitasking. I'm very good at doing one thing very well, not doing 2 things okay. At least pridefully, that's how I like to say it. I might get flack from that from my roommate when he hears this, but that's...
So there's a difference between having anxiety, or maybe there's not. You tell me what you think. Difference between having anxiety and being stressed out because of Well, I guess they can be interchangeable, but I'm saying like some people are just generally
Oh, anxious?
anxious, yeah.
Okay, okay. I see what you're saying.
Versus having things that give you anxiety because of like the pace.
I'd say very few things make me anxious, but how do I deal with it? Um, as stupid as it sounds, when I was in high school, I read a pickup artist book, and it talked about the best way to talk to a girl is that after, if you can't think of something in 3 seconds, then it's not worth it. You gotta let it go, right? So that's the best way I try to think of something, is in, if I can't think of it in 3 seconds, then I just gotta let it go. Try my hardest just to let things go, just let them lie. I try my hardest just to make sure that I can tell myself that it's okay to fail, things will happen. It's not that big of a deal. I had a class once in sophomore year. This is why I read the pickup artist book partly. So I had a class sophomore year. I had to do a speech in front of the entire school, 250 kids. That's a daunting task.
That's heavy.
I've never talked in front of a group of more than 20 people once, and I got to talk to the entire class. And just like when we did the guess who thing, you have to teach them something. So we had to pick a topic, talk about the topic for 2 minutes, or 2.5 minutes. And so I read a bunch of stuff. I watched a lot of videos on it, and this one guy talked about the trump card. So in Bridge is a card game, and no one knows what you're going to say. So you can mess up as much as you want. No one knows you messed up. The worst thing you can say is telling someone, I messed up, got to go back. So learning that, I did my speech, and there's a line in the script that I skipped. And I paused for a quick moment and remembered, I just got to keep going. No one knows. So that's the best way I deal with my anxiety. No one knows who I am or what I'm doing really.
Or what's going on in your head.
What's going on.
That's beautiful, man.
It's all up to you. Only you know internally what's going on. That
was well articulated.
Another fun story is that you don't know me, Sam, but I used to be even more annoying than I am now.
Oh, shit, Rita. I don't think you're annoying.
But, like, if you, like, the way I act around you, Sam, like, or around, like, the office, imagine that, like, times 50. Like, I used to be even crazier. So I used to wear a necklace. It would say on one side on a sticky note, joking, on the other side, not joking. Because I would just say shit. And I would watch people's reaction. And if they seemed upset, I was joking. And if they didn't seem upset, I wasn't joking. So that's one reason. That's another thing that always played into like my anxiety is just, I'm just joking or I'm just not joking. I can always play it off however the audience feels I should play it off.
That's being a chameleon, man. Moving with the ups and downs.
How do you deal with your anxiety, Sam?
I don't get anxious that often, man. I don't mean to say that in like I get anxious when I'm not busy. I keep myself busy, and sometimes I keep myself busy with unproductive stuff just for the sake of being busy.
Really? What would that be?
Doing laundry or like cleaning after I've already cleaned. It's hard for me to sit still. It sounds weird. It's hard for me to just disengage. So I get anxiety when I don't have something to do. So I have to remind myself that, I mean, that's not the point of life, right? Just to always stay busy. But most of the time I'm busy. Most of the time I don't get anxious about stuff because I got stuff to do. You know, like I keep my eyes forward, focused on what I'm doing, and whenever I have a lot of time is when I start to really think about stuff. I'll go through these mini existential crises and be like, holy shit, man, I'm already 23, and what am I going to do? And then I'm like, oh, got to go to the gym. And then it goes away.
Really?
Yeah.
For me, just turning 26, so we got 3 years between us. I'm feeling old, but there's a song I listen to a lot. It's by Perry Como. He's an old crooner. It's called Young at Heart. And essentially it's about like, you could be 105 and still feel alive. Like, you're just young at heart. You don't have to, your age doesn't necessarily define what you're doing. You're just going your own pace.
Age is just a number.
Age is just a number.
Hell yeah.
Exactly.
I ask that because sometimes I feel like I have had a very narrow view on life, and I've grown a lot in the last 2 years, but I used to be, I don't know, man. You just don't know what other people are going through, and I like to get other people's perspectives on stuff.
That's one thing my friend, he told me about the other day, which is something that I'm very thankful for our job, which is the more you talk to strangers, the more of a depth of life you get. You get a better worldview, you get a better understanding just the world around you, and that's one thing we do. We talk to strangers all day. So now, I used to be a little more scared of strangers. Now, not at all. I'm not scared of strangers at all. And my friend, he went to a networking event, and he was like, Reno, since thinking about, they're just strangers, and I'm just a stranger, but we could be friends. We could know each other, right? He goes to all these networking events, and now he makes all of them friends. That's one thing I do. I try my hardest just to build rapport with people because, you could be a stranger, but you're from Missouri, so I can make fun of you for the stupid stuff I know, and then you're like, well, at least he's trying.
You know what's funny?
What?
We're from like the two most opposite demographics in terms of political. Like, it's just kind of funny. From small town Missouri, and you're from California.
I'm from a small town in California.
Oh, you are from a small town in California? Okay, then it's not as funny. But
Well, it's not.
it's a little more relatable.
It's not that small. It's 140,000. That's how big my city is. It's nothing but fields where I'm from, though. That's the hardest thing to describe to people. You leave your house and there's nothing but fields. Nothing but fields, and then there's the city center, and then more fields.
Nice.
All fields. So people think I'm from like San Francisco or LA.
That's where everyone assumes. I just made that assumption.
Yeah.
Even though you told me earlier where you're from.
It's so funny too, because telling people like here in Texas, they all think I'm from. Because I'm from California, so they all think I'm from LA, San Francisco, and I tell them I hate those people too. I moved to Texas to get away from them. They came here.
Nice.
Now I'm trying to move away from them again, so I'll probably find more.
Yes, you will. All right, Reno. If you could talk to anyone, if you could bring anyone back from the dead,
Right.
who would it be, and what would you talk about? What would you ask them?
Assuming that I can talk to them and speak the language or whatever.
Assuming you could talk to anyone and speak their language.
Genghis Khan, for sure. This has been my answer forever and always will be.
Why? Because he like inseminated like half of the Asian population.
Or
what?
he killed so many people, he reduced he cut carbon dioxide by like 25%.
That's wild.
He
Okay. Anyways, I interrupted. Let's hear it.
I always wanted to talk to Genghis Khan because he had the world's largest empire by land. That sounds so insane to keep track of. And he was known for being very ruthless. He was a pretty benevolent ruler. He would conquer you and say, you have your religion, you have your people, tribe. I'm not going to mess with that. Just pay taxes. If you don't pay taxes, that's cool. I'll just, kill all of your family. So I just always thought, like, what's going on in his head? Why this need to conquest people? How does he keep track of all these people? How's he able to constantly win? The only reason his empire collapsed is because he died, and then when they went to go vote, and then his son took over, and when his son died, they all had to go back to Mongolia to vote. If they didn't go back to Mongolia to vote, they would have kept all their posts, but they didn't, so they let go of their posts. People took it over, and then they couldn't go back and win. So it was just going back and forth on horses, just too much. That's how the empire collapsed.
Dang. That's
Conquest. I've always been so
It's a
curious
sad
of
way to go.
conquest and rulers.
Have you ever heard of Alexander the Great?
I have from Greece, right?
He was from some some state of Greece. I think it started with an M. I'll have to.
I don't know, Malta.
No, I don't remember what it is, but yeah, he was from Greece and he conquered. I guess I didn't know Genghis Khan had that stat you said was interesting about
The
him.
world's largest land empire of all time.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Very interesting. I thought Alexander the Great held that title, but he had conquered the known world at the time all the way up to India, so he hadn't made it past India. So I guess most of Europe, excluding like the northern regions probably. But anyways,
It's interesting to think, what was time like back then, right?
it is interesting to think, especially with all the problems we have today. It's like, well, what kind of problems could we have had if we were different problems, I guess. But it's all relative.
We're in a position where we see the cutting edge of society. I'm so curious to know, Sam, like, such a simple idea, the key, right? This opens so many doors, literally and figuratively. What is the next thing people are going to create? Everyone's talking about NFTs. I think that's bullshit. But maybe that actually becomes something,
Dude,
right?
I think NFTs are here to stay. I think that there's a big bubble. It's going to pop. And then most of the shit NFTs may or may not go away forever. But I feel like there is application. But I'm not Gary Vee. But that could be your key.
Right. I have no clue. So there's so many things in society. I'm so curious to know what is next.
What is next? That could be a whole nother episode.
Yeah, what is next?
What is next? I think meta, man. There's gonna be two worlds. There's gonna be the people that prefer to stay in the physical, and there's gonna be the meta people.
I feel
That's what
like
I think's gonna be next.
with the metaverse, once that gets launched and gets more steam, I feel like there's going to be a big like subsect of the world that breaks off and just lives in vans and goes road tripping or just living in the woods. I have some friends that are doing that right now, and I feel like that's just going to grow. Just that desire to be in nature. Because I have a lot of friends that are just sick of being online and staring at their computers or having to interact via online. They just miss the old ways, the old world, hanging out with trees, getting bug bites, right? Campfires and kumbaya.
It's sad that might literally be the old world. Like, how many kids are going to grow up and actually do stuff outdoors when they're using tech from the time they can start walking, you know?
That's one thing that's really upsetting too, at least for me. Go in the grocery store, you see little kids, they're like 1 or 2 and they already have iPads. Like, that's so crazy.
That stuff will, I should cite stuff when I talk on a podcast, but having that much exposure to technology is definitely going to hinder its emotional intelligence, like the ability to communicate, the ability to express emotion. And that was like my dad's old fashioned, but I'm glad now that I'm older. He was very strict whenever I was up to a certain age on technology, whereas my friends weren't. Or not my friends weren't, but I did grow up with a lot of parents who had the exact opposite approach, similar to what's going on now, and it's just different, man. It's different to see how different people grew up and who would. You can definitely see like a noticeable change in how you navigate social structures or interactions, I should say, amongst groups of people who was exposed to like being socialized as a child versus who was very, that one kid who played video games all of his life, and then, not to stereotype, I love playing video games.
Of course.
You know what I mean? We'll see what turns out. I sound like Joe Rogan now. 'Cause he talks about this all the time. We'll see how things go though, as people our age start having kids.
That's interesting.
Like that.
Yeah, I could definitely tell when I'm around someone who sadly spent way too many hours playing video games and didn't get outside and interact with their friends. Or, I mean, if that's something they love, so that's perfectly fine. Me saying it's sad is just my viewpoint. It's kind of tough. They'll be in a social situation and they kind of shut down. They're not able to communicate or converse. It's kind of sad.
It definitely builds a skill set that, to your point about how different the world used to be, listening to our conquerors and stuff, talking about those conquerors timelines we were talking about, but yeah, man, we'll see how it turns out.
A conversation, Sam, is a lot like baking, or a lot like making a recipe. You never know really how it's gonna go, but I feel like we did a really good job making this cake. What do you think?
That's Jesus. That was pretty good. Yeah, no, I think we got this cake, we got this bread.
I think so. Sam, I think in the next episode we got to talk about like making roux or maybe something a little more saucy, right?
All right, you're starting to lose me right now.
Sam, thanks so much for talking to me. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I guess I'll see you tomorrow.
I'll see you on the next episode.
Cheers, friend.
Cheers.
This is a Manhattan Route 7 local train. The next stop is Grand Central, 42nd Street.
Stand clear of the